Calamity has come a long way since its inception, and with that age, it's come with an astounding add-on, Infernum. What this mod does is revamp every boss into a super challenging visual spectacle. I'm taking on every one of them with my favorite class, and the one that people always recommend to not play, Summoner. Maybe I'll be convinced to switch classes, or maybe Infernum isn't quite as hard as people crack it up to be. This is the new Infernum Summoner experience. After spawning in under this beautiful tree, I checked my starter bag and got my first summon weapon, this cute little flint guy. I built a really quick shelter and checked under the tree. There were plenty of potions and a bit of copper armor, but no good weapons yet. After working on my base a bit more, I started exploring and encountered some ice caves, but then got interrupted by a bat. No sweat though, this is Infernum. It's designed to be hard, which means I need to prepare extra before I fight any bosses. After a quick little caving trip, I had the materials to make an arena builder, just in case an evil presence decided to watch me. Then I began tackling my first big hurdle, a summoning armor set. You see, when you're playing as the best class, you don't just go and mine ores like some kind of loser. Summoner armor is most often crafted from the bodies of your enemies. We're making Wolfram armor, the first armor set that grants me one extra summon slot. I just had to find a few of these Wolfram drones, but they really aren't cooperating. While on my hunt, I got myself a slime staff, a crimson key from this chest, and this accessory that gives me an energy shield. Cool. After a bit more journeying and making it all the way to the ocean, I recalled back home to make my new set. And now I can have 2 slimes. Let's go, 2 slimes. Now that I have some more offensive power, I feel a bit safer exploring the caves. So I craft an instavator, which makes an instant tunnel straight down and boom. Man. Using a spelunker potion, I first prioritized life crystals to increase my health, since that would make everything else generally easier. Along the way, I also got a ton of potions, which I then used to explore the sky. Or at least I tried. Besides some planter boxes that I'm barely going to use, there's not really much of note about spawn. I found some power cell factories, but those won't be of much use until later in the game. After one last cave trip to max out my health, I decided to get ready for my first boss, the Desert Scourge. I flailed through the underground desert in search of storm lions, which I need to craft the summoning item. I also acquired a better staff that I would use against the boss. After setting up a better loadout and grabbing some potions, I went back to the desert to fight the Scourge right away. The most important part about this fight is the sparks. They're generated by the Stormline minions, as well as an accessory I got from the underground desert called a Mightiest Spark. With it, I'm able to deal damage to every segment of the Scourge that passes through it. The Flaming Mace was also a great choice for this fight, since I was able to draw it along its body to deal constant damage. Then the second phase started and I was on low health. It was getting hard to reach the Scourge as it darted around, but once my shield regenerated, ramming it with my body was not a bad strategy. And just like that, I beat my first Infernum boss with no deaths. Yeah! Woo! Boom. Alright, first boss. Summoner's not bad. With my spirits high, I crafted my next set of armor, the Victide set, and set out to explore the world some more. While you're watching, do me a solid and hit the subscribe button. It only takes 2 seconds and it helps me out a ton. Thanks. I went to the jungle in search of vines and stingers to make the Snapthorn, but I was soon overwhelmed by enemies. After one more trip though, I crafted my first whip, and a pretty good one at that. After digging out an easy and accessible path to the sunken sea, and dying to the giant clam twice, I continued my exploration of the underground, and found a gladiator's locket, which would be handy for my next couple of bosses. Speaking of bosses, I now felt like I was ready for the Eye of Cthulhu. I took a few potions and dove straight into the fight. The Stormlines were again proving themselves here. I was able to get to the second phase with no trouble. In the end, the eye just dealt very little damage, so I was able to first try this one too. Yeah! The first thing I did was equip the shield, which would allow me to dash and make dodging quick attacks much easier. After that, I wasted no time and made the slime crown with a demon altar, and utilized my time in the Crimson to destroy a couple of hearts for a chance at a goblin army later. I figured that if I could beat the last 2 bosses so easily, King Slime would be no different, but I was mistaken. This was the first boss to give me any trouble, mostly because I couldn't just run in a straight line. This gem that spawns in at phase 2 shoots calculated projectiles that will hit you if your movement is too consistent. Focusing on that and hitting the slime at the same time ended up being too hard for my first attempt. I noticed that the gem had a health bar, so I tried to craft a bow to shoot it, but not only was that impossible with my current movement restrictions, but it was also pointless. Figuring that my current setup wasn't going to cut it, I decided to scavenge the Sky Islands for more potions while I waited for the arms dealer to move in. My plan was to buy the Mini Shark, a perfect choice for early hard mode boss fights. Looking back, I know that as a summoner, using a gun probably should have disqualified my run, but I don't really care. It gets way harder later on anyways. Anyway, after beating King Slime, I built a couple houses underground for a future pylon system, then took care of a goblin army that dared step onto my land. I went from there straight to the sulfurous sea on the left for a sentry staff dropped by these exploding frogs. Then I killed the Eye of Cthulhu again for the Death Stare Rod, my next best summon weapon. And finally, I bought a bunch of potions from the potion seller. All of this was in preparation to fight Crabulon. It went well the first time, but the arena felt just a bit too small. Then I crafted a City Buster. It got the job done. Crabulon was easily the most fun boss yet. It forces you into tight spaces where movement is key, and every attack is like a quick time puzzle. Luckily, I'm pretty good with those. Hey. With a new accessory loadout, I went again to the Sky Islands, this time with the intention of finding fledgling wings. After I couldn't though, I just farmed enemies and bought them from the Point Shop mod. Then I died to the Brain of Cthulhu so many times that I ran out of Crimson Hearts to explode, and I had to farm mushrooms the entire recording just to make the spawner. Because I'm not insane, I figured that I would need a better weapon. Since my Stormline minions only walk around, I thought a faster and more mobile summon would be able to deal more consistent damage to the agile brain. So I fought the Desert Scourge again to get the Brittle Star Staff. While I was digging around for more Crimson Hearts, I found the Goblin Tinkerer and immediately bought some rocket boots, a tinker table, and some rocket boots. With a memory deficiency like this, I'm surprised I made it through high school. What was I doing again? Oh right, fighting the brain. Oh right, but I still need mushrooms for the spawner. After an entire fucking day of no mushrooms growing, I got bored and decided to explore the Shimmer, where I found the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in Terraria, like oh my god. Unfortunately, after transmuting a few of my items, I no longer had a use for it. And then I finally found enough mushrooms to make the Brain of Cthulhu spawner and give it a proper go. With the open space and new weapon, it was still hard, but I ended up victorious. Deathbringer pickaxe. The first thing I did with the tissue samples was make a Deathbringer pickaxe so I could get a Hellforge so that I could make myself obsidian armor. I also made a new summon, the Cinder Blossom Staff, and had to go with the Perforators. I managed to get to the third phase, but it wasn't quite enough. Nah. Nor was it the second time. So I decided to test out a strategy I developed to deal with bosses later on. The idea was to fight an Eye of Cthulhu first and leave the drops on the ground during the Perforator fight. That way I could pick up the hearts when I needed them in a pinch. It may be a slightly cheesy strategy, but a strategy nonetheless. I'm really enjoying these Infernum fights, because while they are much harder, all elements of bullshit have been retracted, and every death is entirely the result of a skill issue. And so, because I can win, I feel skilled. Ooh. Here's a weapon I wish I had sooner, the Vile Feeder Staff. The sheer speed and accuracy of these minions carries me well through the rest of Pre-Hardmode. I also get this Aerialite stuff after beating the Perforators, and not only do I get a good armor set from it, but some pretty decent wings. In the Remnants mod, there's one central beehive where you're meant to fight the queen, and like every other structure, it's beautifully handcrafted, and perfect to blow up. The queen didn't like that and made quick work of me, but once I had a proper arena, I reclaimed victory. Like the Perforators and Skeletron, I found this fight very rewarding and very fun. Speaking of Skeletron, let's talk about that fight. I'd watched a few Infernum series on YouTube and knew that most people found this fight to be a massive pain, so I was rightfully scared going into it. It was about what I expected, a highly precise bullet hell. After a few attempts on it, I was afraid that people were right to hate this boss. That is, until I randomly decided to do this. Ooh. I'd figured out Skeletron's secret, and once I knew that, the fight was much easier than before. Probably my second favorite pre-wall boss, right behind the Perforators. Bro, this is easy. Infernum is easy! Infernum is easy! While in the dungeon, I got a semi-powerful summon that, while strong, wasn't able to fly, so it wouldn't be all that helpful. And here's the mechanic. Hey, mechanic. And who can forget the Cobalt Shield? It's the only reason anyone goes to the dungeon for anything pre-Plantera. And, like, I guess there is also this cool Bone Whip. And now I'm in late pre-hard mode, which means that all I have left is prepare for the Wall of right, Slime God exists. I don't like that I don't like the Slime God. It's a really cool concept and has one of my favorite songs in the entire OST, but the fight is just no fun, and Infernum doesn't fix that in the slightest. The whole fight is a repetition of the same 3 boring attacks, one of which I never really understood, and the final fight with the Slime Core is another repetition of 3 attacks. I know that technically that's what most bosses in this mod are doing, but at least those are fun. Even the armor just gave a boost to knockback, which a summoner never wants, so it's really just better to keep the beast suit. At the very least, I did get this whip that hits twice, which will be nice for the Wall of Flesh. By this point, all the bosses had taken less than 5 attempts to beat, so how hard could the Wall of Flesh really be? I made that sound like a setup for a dramatic failure montage, but in reality it just took 7 attempts. Either Eternity Mode made me cracked at the game, or Infernum just isn't all that it's cracked up to be. Or at least, that's what I thought, up until Hard Mode. Whoa. After going around and gathering Cobalt, which is useless to my class, and subsequently making a set of spider armor, I dove straight into the fight against the first hard mode boss, the Queen Slime. And Jesus Christ, this fight is plain insane. At first her attacks are really interesting but not hard to understand, and then she turns into a discount Empress of Light. My jaw dropped and my brain just went into overtime trying to dodge some of these attacks. This is what I've been waiting for all this time, a real challenge. After a few attempts, I realized that my pirate minions weren't capable of keeping up with this boss, so I fell back on my old reliable, the Vile Feeder Staff from Pre-Perforators. They didn't do nearly as much damage, but they were consistent, which means after doing nothing but practicing the fight and getting good, I'd have a guaranteed win. Okay, I did resort to the Eye of Cthulhu heart setup again, but a win is a win, okay?
A win is a win.
Yeah!
A win is a win.
Hard mode's when you can start to get really crazy with the amount of minion slots you can have. I summoned a goblin army for the first Shadow Flame, and bought Howl's Heart, which gives me 3... I don't really know what these are. Cryogen. The boss that was harder due to my own poor decisions. You see, Cryogen's projectiles are white, and the fancy lighting mod I have running also makes the background rather bit white.
If you look at my screen closely, you can see there is a very subtle glare effect.
To be fair though, I also died when it was night, so it was probably definitely a problem with my gear. Cryogen had way too many projectiles, and I didn't feel like doing a bullet hell, so I upgraded my home base arena and fought the twins. But not only did I make the same mistake of using my pirate minions again, but this fight is also just really hard. Understood. I swapped out Howl's Heart for the Pygmy Necklace, which would give me another minion slot, but the second attempt wasn't any better. Nor was the third, but the fourth. That one got me all the way to the final phase. After that, I was in the jungle, I don't really remember why, and I came across some life fruits. Turns out Calamity enables life fruits before the mech bosses, so I dug around and found as many as I could. And you know, 100 extra HP is nothing to scoff at, unless you're the twins. I just wasn't able to make this fight work. Until 4 attempts later. The Twins Medal is all about agility. You must be moving at top speed 99% of the time, or it's curtains. Sometimes the twins take turns, but when they aren't, one pins you down while the other forces you to move. The tech can get extremely precise. Then there's the final tandem attack, followed by the burnout attack. If I wasn't able to hit this adrenaline surge, I most definitely would not have made it through Spasmatism's burnout. Yeah. First things first, the summon the twins drop is really cute, but I need to farm brimstone enemies for this spinny weapon that's supposedly good against the destroyer. However, the destroyer is a little bit hard. Unfortunately, this is the worst stage to be in as a summoner, since upgrading my armor with the hard mode ores is out of the question. There's no way to increase my defense, so I'm leaning more into offense. I remembered that my class gets access to flasks, which imbue my weapon with a certain debuff, and Iker should work well against the destroyer. Iker did, in fact, work well against the destroyer, but I did not. Since I was bored, I just decided to try other bosses. Skeletron Prime didn't work, we'll talk about him later. Wasn't doing hot against the Aquatic Scourge, and also the Calamitous clone murked me. Yep, there he goes. From that point, I started doing some gathering to make myself some new sets of potions. Tesla potions give the electrified debuff, which I speculated would work well against any mechanical bosses. I then made several flasks of crumbling, just because it seemed good. And finally, I beat that pesky giant clam so that I could make a new whip, the Prism Brick, and use it against the destroyer. And boy did it help. Hey, that wasn't actually that bad. I went around and mined up some adamantium and titanium for the forge. And I also beat Cryogen, but I somehow lost the footage for that. Anyway, after a whole bunch of cryonic ore mining, I made the Daedalus set, which was a massive upgrade in defense. Whoa, that is a huge defense upgrade. What? And then I tried to fight the Aquatic Scourge again, this time using the Ancient Ice Chunk, which worked against the Destroyer. I lost this attempt, but it was much more successful than most. After a few more attempts, I noticed that I was seemingly taking damage from nothing. And I figured I'd come back to this fight later, since there's clearly a mechanic here that I don't understand. Now we can talk about Skeletron Prime. If you're a seasoned Infernum player, you may notice that this is not Infernum Skeletron Prime. What? Not only is this the wrong fight, but the attacks are incoherent, it does way too much damage, and the fight is just flat out unfair. And it's all thanks to Calamity Overhaul, which is advertised as enhancing the gaming experience. I fucking hate whoever redesigned this goddamn Skeletron Prime fight. I was literally closer to beating fucking Astron Aureus. Fuck you. Okay, rant over. After all that was getting me nowhere, I started getting really close to beating the Aquatic Scourge. And I also found out its hidden mechanic. Go in the bubble. That's it. Since I was no longer losing a quarter of my health every 30 seconds, the fight was a lot easier than it was before.
Yes.
However, this left me with the same issue as before. I'm still stuck at Skeletron Prime, and it's still freaking impossible. After an hour of failure after failure after failure, I finally looked up the fight and realized that Calamity Overhaul made it worse and removed the mod. I summoned Skeletron Prime, and it's safe to say I came overprepared. Now that I had all the mech souls, I made the Drax, a new set of boots, and went straight to the underground jungle to explode an arena for Plantera. Plantera was just a crap ton of projectiles. It wasn't really all that challenging, and it took me 3 attempts.
Hey.
After improving my wings for the first time with the dev set drop, I started farming the pumpkin moon for spooky wood in order to make spooky armor, which delivers a fat 58% damage boost to all summons. Funnily enough though, I beat the Calamitous clone without even putting the armor on. Then once I got my spook on, I used it against Astrum Aureus, and it killed me and took out 2 NPCs along with me. But then I employed a new strategy. Stay the hell away from that thing, and use a summon that can lock onto the boss over a distance.
Yeah, I think I win. Yeah.
With this loadout, I felt like I'd be able to beat the golem too, and I only got 1 death. This fight is extremely well fit for its arena, by the way. It's entirely composed of attacks that rely on precision and small movements.
What is that laser gonna do? Oh, I didn't have to find out. Nice.
Using my new pick saw, I was able to mine scoria ore from the abyss, which was the last ingredient I needed to make life alloy, a material used in dozens of useful recipes. One of which is the Star Tainted Generator, granting 2 minion slots increased damage and several debuffs. Now I'm in the final wave of bosses leading up to the Moonlord. First was Duke Fishron, which felt way too fast. Then the Plaguebringer Goliath, which was laggy as all hell, but I got close.
No.
I liked this fight. It was exciting, fast-paced, and had excellent movement tech.
Yes.
After making the Plaguebringer armor and getting a new crazy strong whip from the dungeon, I gave the Duke Fishron another try. And as long as I kept dashing, it wasn't that hard at all.
Can't see him. Oh my god, I did it. It was that easy?
I figured out by now that the trade-off for low defense as a summoner had a huge payout in the form of ridiculously high DPS, which means good movement takes priority over defense. But if I'm going to prioritize damage, I'm going to need the Terra Prisma. And to be honest, I was looking forward to this fight the whole run. This fight is awesome. Infernum's Empress of Light is a force to be reckoned with. After a few attempts and a Ravager break, this guy was so easy in comparison, I decided to use the Stardust Dragon against her, which meant taking out the Lunatic Cultist. Culty Boy was flashy, confusing, and had a final desperation phase.
Don't have like a final phase, bro. Oh my god.
But ultimately wasn't that hard.
Yes.
After taking out the Stardust Pillar, I went right ahead to test out my new staff. One attack is never finished before the Empress is charging up a new one. You have to look at the present and the future at once to succeed in this fight. But to say the dragon made short work of her would be an understatement.
So it's just a chance. Yes! Yeah, alright, Terra Prisma.
Before I knew it, I was looking at the last boss before Moonlord, the Great Sand Shark.
Damn.
While visually impressive, it wasn't nearly as hard as the Empress, and stood no chance against Terra Prisma.
Wait, did I do it? Hey.
While I haven't played Infernum, I know that Moonlord is infamously hard no matter what mod you're playing. And after my first attempt, only getting about 20% through his health, it seemed like my intuition was right.
Let me out of the corner!
I took a quick detour to Astrum Deus, hoping to get something from it like an accessory, but to no avail. And I wasn't making any more progress with my attempts at the Moonlord either. For a while, I thought that maybe I had finally run into a boss that would take so many tries that it would drive me crazy. A challenge that trumps everything else I've experienced up until this point. Until suddenly, I tapped into a power I never knew was deep inside me. And this happened.
We're making progress, actually. Okay, we second phase now. Ooh. They all curve towards me. Hey, just do as much damage as I can in such a short amount of time. What? No! I did it. No way.
Excuse me?
Infernum is easy!
So, Summoner still rocks, and Infernum, at least pre-Moonlord, is kinda easy. Maybe I'll eat my words in the next video, featuring all the post-Moonlord bosses. Subscribe and turn on notifications if you don't want to miss that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you around.